Week number 7, the final 2 weeks of the regular season. It's time for our weekly preview presented by the Browns West Branch family of dealerships. And Jason, where do you want? I mean, you got homecoming, you got a win, you got playoffs, you got whatever you want. There's a lot that went on Friday night as the Bears get the 28-14 win over Durant.
Well, it's all like a stew, right? It's all like a stew in a pot. You throw things in and hopefully they come out tasting great. Well, you got a win. You got to celebrate homecoming. And now your team's qualified for the playoffs, and congratulations to West Branch on that. It was a fun game where you score first. Durant comes right back. We talked about that Nolan DeLong young man.
He's kind of good, yeah.
He's kind of good, 84 yards, and then he has a 2-point conversion. Nolan Long 8, West Branch 7. Then the Bears 21 consecutive points, and then just kind of held on. In the second half, had a little bit of a turnover issue, but the defense did what the defense has been doing all year, and just there was no bend and no breaking stuff. It was just they played a pretty good game.
Yeah, and it was one of those that, I mean, we talked a lot last week with homecoming and worried about focus, and this team, it just seems like it has been on point most of this season of, hey, we're out here, we're playing football, this is where our focus is in between these lines for these next 48 minutes.
Yeah, most every game they have risen to what the opponent is putting on the field in front of them. Lisbon, great school, now ranked in the top 5 again in Class A. It was a great game. Second game, Waterloo Columbus, one of the better teams in 1A. It was a punch and go, and the Bears just didn't get it. And then they played each team as well as they could play each team, I think, other than a few turnovers, and the coaches will talk about that stuff. But to be on a 4-game win streak and qualified for the playoffs now, I think that starts with this next week.
Yeah, and, I mean, yeah, it's great to say we've qualified for the playoffs, but you don't want to just get there. You want to get going deep into the playoffs. And like you said, you go over to Iowa City to take on a Regina squad that, I mean, they were the Class A state champions last year. They lost their opening game a year ago, and they haven't lost since. They do have a couple forfeits in there, but this is a really good football team. It's going to be a tough challenge for the Bears.
Only giving up 27 points in 4 games played this year officially. Well, 20, and then you had 2 zeros with the forfeits, 1-0, 1-0, taking those apart. They're beating teams by an average of 30-7 on the season. They're averaging about 19 passes per game. They're averaging around 200 yards rushing a game. What do you got for rushing?
224.
225 a game. So this is a team that's not just that. Yeah, they lost Ashton Cook and they lost Alec Wick, who may be one of the most prolific passing catching combinations in the history of Iowa high school football. But they're ham and egging it, and they're taking what the kids they have on their roster and using their strengths, and they're back in the top 3. They're 6-0, and they're a good football program.
Well, you mentioned they lost one cook. They lost 2 cooks.
They lost
Marv
2
Cook,
cooks, yes.
Left the program in the offseason, and new coach and Jason Dumont. But, you know, you change who's in charge, but the expectations and the philosophy is going to stay the same. This is going to be the same Regal team that we've seen for the last 15 or 20 years.
And Jason Dumont and Ed Hinkle, as the offensive coordinator, are same Regal coaches who have been there basically for the last 10 to 15 years with Coach Cook. So it's not like they're losing. It's a completely new regime. These guys have been there, and a lot of the assistant coaches have been there. So I'd love to say it's a plug-and-play system where the next kid in doesn't want to be the one that breaks that chain of victory. And so far, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and they've got really solid offensive line. They've got great skill players as well. So it's going to be probably the biggest challenge to date for the Bears in terms of just a complete package and needing to play team defense, need to have all 11 guys on the offense working together.
Yeah, since Waterloo Columbus is by far the best challenge that West Branch has seen on both sides from throwing and passing, and then everything up front with the skill positions is where everything is going to work for most teams, but for Regina, it works better than most. They don't make many mistakes. They don't make the extra mistakes, but they will go the extra yard of blocking to get 4, 5, 6 yards where other teams may only get 2, 3, 4 yards. It's a team that doesn't make mistakes, and you hope you don't on Friday night, or you'll pay for it. But it should be I still think it's going to be a pretty spirited and well-played football game between both teams.
It's a rivalry game. You know, you can throw out records no matter when these two get together. It's always going to be a knockdown drag out.
And it's just and just remember, it's just the next game on the schedule. It's a special game because of the rivalry, but for both teams, they're just hoping they can come out the winner and be on the top of the district standings after we get through week 8. And this is the game that's going to provide us who's probably going to be that champion.
Yep. Well, if you can't make it over there, we'll have all the pregame coverage starting with the Bearcast at 6:30, kickoff at 7 o'clock over at Iowa City, Regina. The weekly preview and the Bearcast presented all season long by the Browns West Branch family of dealerships right here at westbranch.football.